Hello and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on the income stream. We are 167 days straight into this, and this is the first stream in September. Happy September, everybody. We have a new quote-unquote organization or charity that we're going to be focusing on this month. More on that in just a moment. For everybody new here, thank you so much. Please subscribe. We are here every single day. And today, very special, we are going to be having a special guest with us in relation to the topic that we're discussing today. Today, we're going to be talking about finding, hiring, and working with an assistant. There comes a point in the life of an entrepreneur, business owner, or even just a person where you're going to need some help. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the story about how I hired my first help, how much of a struggle it was, some of the mistakes I made, and then probably in about 15 minutes, we're going to bring our special guest in, and we're going to have a conversation, and hopefully you can learn and come out of this with some information, some inspiration to know that there is help out there that can take a lot of things off of your plate so you can get more time back to do other things, whether it's more business things or more time with family. Doesn't matter. I'm here for you. Thank you so much. Team Flynn, let's enjoy the time together. Here we go.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream, all while we keep it clean. This is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
All right, September 1st, yo. I want to thank everybody who has donated and all the members here who have offered their fee, specifically for the organization we supported in August, which was polarisproject.org. It's helping to put a stop to human trafficking, and more on the total later. But today I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to all the teachers out there. In fact, September is dedicated to teachers. I put out an email this morning letting people know that I will be supporting teachers this month, especially those who are paying out of pocket to support their kids. And in fact, already on Twitter, I don't know if you've seen this, but my pinned comment at the top is asking for teachers to let us know if they've been speaking and actually needing some income or money to support them with their classroom this month. And already I think, bought 4 people's entire lots of things that they've needed, and it's the least I can do. I had a good day and a good month with some of the Tesla stock that I've had, and I want to pay some of that forward, and plus the donations that come in through here, through the super chats, through the memberships. I'm going to be paying it forward. Teachers are everything. They are severely underpaid, especially here in the US, and they've been stepping into this weird arena this month. My kids start school tomorrow, in fact, and I just want to give and put a spotlight on teachers this month. In addition, if you go to patflynn.com/teachers, you'll see a form where if you are a teacher or you know a teacher, you can insert some information about what you'd like me to create content for you about. I'm sure if you're a teacher, there's some things that you want to get better at or learn how to do, especially related to technology and online and communication virtually. I'm more than happy to help. patflynn.com/teachers. Fill out that form. Let me know what you need help on. I'm going to create as much content as I can this month for teachers. So there we go. Today we're going to be talking about, like I said, hiring, working, and finding an assistant. We have a special guest coming in about 10 minutes here, so make sure you stick around for that. But we need to talk a little bit about why we might want to hire an assistant in the first place. How do we know if it's the right thing for us? So I need to go into a little bit of a story. So members, you know what to do here. So back when I first started as an entrepreneur, I wanted to do everything myself. In fact, that's one of the benefits of working online and building a business online, is you can actually structure it in a way where, in fact, you can build it yourself. I just gotten laid off from an architecture job in 2008. I started my business helping people pass an architectural exam, as many of you know, and that business started to take off, and I vowed that I was never going to hire somebody because I wanted all the control, right? With my architecture business, I remember when working with so many people, it was like, well, there were so many hands involved that it was really hard to move forward. It was really hard to progress. And in fact, I could do everything myself, so why would I need to hire somebody else? So I actually worked in my business all by myself for years. There was a couple projects here and there, one-off projects where I needed some voiceover work. So I hired somebody on, back then it was called elance.com, and now it's called upwork.com, because if you remember, Odesk and Elance sort of came together to become Upwork, and I hired a voiceover person. That being said, I remember trying to do the voiceovers myself, and it was terrible. This was to read my architecture guidebook and then sell that, and that was probably the biggest investment in my business that I ever made at the time. I spent $1,400 to have somebody read and record it, which I thought I could do myself, but I couldn't. So that was kind of my first experience, because after this person, a woman I found on Elance, recorded it, it sounded beautiful, and all these MP3 files were sold in a package along with my ebook at a higher price, and a lot of people took me up on that offer, and it took me just a couple days, in fact, to make up that cost. So that was my first experience with putting money into somewhere where, maybe I didn't even have necessarily a budget for that. I just knew that I needed to get it done, and then I saw the returns on that too. I've also had experience hiring VAs, virtual assistants, in the Philippines. A very popular place to find VAs because of the scale of economics. I was paying a person who was doing some development work back in the niche site days. I don't know if you remember the niche site stuff, but these were websites that I was creating, and I was trying to pump out a whole bunch of them, and it was just repeated content over time that I could just continue to come out with, and I hired some help. And so through my buddy Chris Ducker's website, Virtual Staff Finder, I found a Filipino VA. The reason why the Philippines is a very popular place to find a VA is because, number one, they speak great English. They teach English in school. I'm half Filipino myself. The culture there is very much a loyal people, and they will do whatever the boss tells them to do, and they'll do it well. But the issue is that I found is they're never going to overstep you in a way where they can actually add more value. It's great that they're not going to, quote unquote, overstep you. Maybe that's a harsh word, but these are people who are never going to suggest how to do things better, if that makes sense. They do their job, they do it well, and over time I was eventually looking for somebody to work with me, not just work for me, if that makes sense. But just to give you some perspective on just how much it might cost to hire a VA in the Philippines, and I'm not saying they're bad. I mean, they're absolutely amazing, and depending on what it is that you want to hand off, which we'll talk about in just a minute, a Filipino VA might be perfect for you. But just to give you some perspective, I hired a developer to do some web stuff, which is like higher level stuff, for 40 hours a week for, get this, $800 a month. $800 a month, yo. That's almost robbery, I thought, right? And so I actually offered this person more money, and he denied it. He didn't want it. And I was like, are you crazy? I'm basically doubling how much. He's like, no, please don't. I'm perfectly happy where I am. It pays for the family and the meal and the house. And I'm like, wow. Apparently, when you make a lot of money in the Philippines, you have a target on your back. And so this person actually wanted a lower income. Just kind of completely different than how we in the US feel about things like that. But anyway, it was cool. And then the project ended, and then I started just continuing to work for myself, never really thinking that I could hire somebody like an executive assistant who would be there that I could check in with every day. They would actually help me with my travel, like all those things I could do myself, scheduling interviews, those types of things. Never thought I would get to that point. But eventually, when I saw that my email inbox had nearly 10,000 unread emails, this was several years after I started my business. In fact, part of what helped put me on the map, and something that I recommend we all do, and this is the advantage you have when you're starting out fresh and you're starting out small, is that you can reply to every single email. You can reply to every single comment. But there comes a point where you're going to grow, and you're going to be unable to do that, or you're going to continue to do that and not spend time elsewhere where you could grow and serve even better. Or maybe it takes time away from other things in your life that you know are important and you need to spend time with. So seeing that I was drowning in email, I knew that it was time for me to hire somebody who was going to help me manage that. And that's where I found my amazing assistant, Jess. And Jess is somebody who many of you know. Many of you have had contact with her. If you've been to FlynnCon or any of my events, you've seen her in person. She's awesome. She has a flower in her hair, usually most of the time. And she's been amazing to work with. But before we get into how we work together, I'd want to offer some advice for you in terms of what you think you could potentially hire somebody out for and the economics of that. Because I did see some questions, and this is perhaps some of you in the chat I saw earlier. You had mentioned that perhaps, well, I don't have necessarily the money for this, right? I don't know if I can afford hiring somebody. I'm not quite sure if it makes sense for me to spend money where I don't necessarily see a direct ROI coming back, which makes sense, right? And we're in an age where oftentimes you can see how much money you're spending on something and you can directly see how much money you're getting back with things like Instagram ads and Facebook ads and things like that. But it can be pretty difficult sometimes to make that jump and that leap. Number one, you don't have to go all in. You can start small. You can hire somebody on contractual basis. You don't need to have them be an employee of your business, which adds a lot of paperwork and a lot of administrative stuff. So they can be on contract first. You don't have to hire them for 40 hours a week. In fact, I know a lot of people who have an assistant who help out for just 5 hours a week, right? And at 5 hours a week at, I don't know, $20, $40 an hour, whatever. I mean, yes, that's, a couple $100, but that adds up. Not just in how much money you spend, but more so in how much time you can get back. And when it comes to what it is that you do that you can imagine hiring out for, the best exercise actually comes from a book called Virtual Freedom. This book is written by my best friend, Chris Ducker. He, at the time when he wrote this book, that's all he was known for, virtual assistants. And he still has this expertise. He's obviously branched into something else and is doing really well with that too. It's called Youpreneur, helping people with personal brands. But he still helps people and is very much knowledgeable about hiring VAs. And his book, Virtual Freedom, helps you get freedom by hiring virtual assistants and getting outside help. And in this book, there is an exercise called the 3 lists of freedom. I'm not going to go over it exactly right now, but the idea is you write down all the things that you are doing in your business, that you have to do in your business, and especially the things that you know need to be done, that you actually like to do and can do very well, but probably shouldn't do in your business. And this gives you an idea of the things that you can prioritize, because here's the first lesson when it comes to hiring assistants and hiring help. There is no superhuman who can do it all. You cannot expect to hire one person to do all the things. We need to hire for not just the tasks, but the role, if that makes sense. What role are you hiring for? Not just the individual tasks, right? And that's where you can start to have a person come in and, like my assistant, Jess, come in and really start to expand the breadth of what this person can do for you after they come in for one thing, right? So I hired Jess, for example, to help me with my email. And with my email, we started to work through this, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But then we discovered that there were some other things that were repetitive that I needed help with that she could offer support for. And these are things that only we know to hand off once we see them. So whether it's a bunch of Post-it notes or on a document of some kind, or even written down on paper, you can start to circle and see where most of your time is being spent, and realizing that a lot of this stuff you don't have to do and maybe even shouldn't do yourself. And that's where you start to grow as quote unquote CEO of your company. That's the transition between scrappy entrepreneur and CEO level type entrepreneurship, to the point where, and I'm not talking suits and ties and things like that. I'm talking CEO as in I'm being smart about my business. I am, I see some conversation in the chat. Rhino Dog 34, we're here for you. Best prayers. If you need to talk, let me know, but we're here for you. We're family. Thank you so much. When it comes to hiring, the CEO level type of hiring and work and just mindset is knowing how much your time is worth and where it should be put, and that there are other people, other talents out there that can do a much better job and do things much faster than we can. That's really what has been the biggest thing for me as in terms of growing up as an entrepreneur in the last few years. I got to give credit to a few people who have helped inspire me to do this. Michael Hyatt, author of The Vision Driven Leader, which we had been talking about in SPI Pro. Talking about Ramit Sethi, who had direct conversations with me to tell me, in fact, very aggressively, I need to stop focusing on these little things and start focusing on the bigger things that only I can do, because there's other people who can do these other things as well, from working on my podcast to helping book travel to answering emails, etc. Chris is asking a question. When you hire a VA, are they seen as independent contractors come tax time. Indeed, they are. Now, there's going to be, and I would recommend finding a CPA, for example, to make sure that you're following all the rules, because depending on how much time they work for you, they might be taxed differently, and there could be different considerations based on how many hours they're working for you. And it's going to be different in different places for different businesses. So make sure that you find a CPA who can help you with your particular situation. But in general, at the start at least, especially if you're working through an agency, like there's a couple agencies that I can recommend where you can hire a assistant and get help for how to do that as well. Belay, Belay is number one, and also Priority VA. Belay and Priority VA, and those are a couple places that you can go to find some really good help. And a lot of my students have hired people through either of those places. Again, Belay, Belay. I had an interview with the founders not too long ago at the start of this year, and it was great. And also Trevinia's Priority VA are really good too. Great question, by the way. Okay, so we have a special guest who's going to be joining us today, like I said, and this person is here with us today, all the way from just a few miles down the road, honestly, because she lives here in San Diego with me, and I'm really excited to bring her in. Any guesses who this person might be? Question from Dr. Joella. Question, I'm not seeing the membership link, Pat Flynn. Is it enabled and listed? If you go to patflynn.com/membership, it should pop up. I don't know why it's not popping up, and depending if you're on mobile or not, you might need to go to a desktop. I'm not quite sure. But let's see if we get any guesses for who this special guest is. I saw a couple guesses. I saw some people guessing Jess. I saw some people guessing Chris Ducker. The timing works out for both, but we're going to see who this is. So I'm going to let this person in. If they're ready, if you can give me a thumbs up in the green room, we can get started. Awesome. Okay, so here we go. 3, 2, and here she is. We have Jess in the house with us. What's up, Jess? How are you?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm doing well. How are you?
So thankful you are here. We have a couple hundred people in the room watching right now and several thousand coming to watch this later. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and sort of what you do for me and how we even got started together, that'd be really cool to start out with. And then I want to ask some questions. We're going to pop up some questions here in the chat as well for everybody to see and to get your answers on. So who is Jess? What do you do for Team Flynn and all of us?
Hi, everybody. I'm I have been working on since 2014. We actually ended up with Mindy, who was on the team. And before I go too much further, I feel like I'm hearing an echo on this end.
You're hearing an echo on that end. Okay, let me turn this down. And can you try talking again?
How about now? Much better.
Is that better?
Kind of, but
okay, hold on. Let me see if
I got it. I'm just not used to anything.
Let's go here. Try again. Can you? Oh no, I'm not hearing you there. Okay, so chat. The reason why I wanted Jess to come in first is because we work so closely together. We can work out the kinks here. I'm using a brand new software. So people are saying perfect. Okay. But then I can't hear her.
Okay. I'm not delivering in video. And yeah, I am the first person to say, okay, this is not quite right. What can we do to fix it?
Okay. Can you hear me okay, though?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead. I think we got it figured out.
Perfect. Okay. So hi, everybody again. My name is Jess. I've been working with Pat since 2014. I actually ended up getting connected with him through Mindy, who still works on our team. She is our solutions manager. And I think at the time she was working on the SPI podcast and a number of other projects. And just one day, I had I come from an executive assistant background. I'm in my 16th or 17th year. I would have to actually look and do some math. But about 7 years ago, I just got tired of working in an office building. You know, I was kind of sitting around for 40 plus hours a week, maybe working like 20 a week, and just kind of not feeling like it was the best use of my time, like it was the best use of other people's money. And I really just wanted to be doing more impactful, more deep, more, worthwhile work. And I decided that I would rather, instead of doing one job with, a full-time job, one client, essentially, I would rather have a handful of clients who needed like 5 to 10 hours a week, and then be busy and doing interesting stuff and learning a lot every day. And I sent an email to everybody I knew, just said, hey, everybody, life update, quitting my job, throwing a party, you should come. And by the way, this is what I'm doing instead. I am becoming a freelance executive assistant. This was back in 2013, back when not a lot of people really did that. And about 5 minutes after I sent that email, Mindy reached out to me and said, we have a job for you. And the rest is history. So, it took a couple months to finally get connected and get up to speed. For anybody who's a long-term SPI fan, I was on the Smart Passive Income podcast back in 2014. I think it was episode 115. Is that right? With the Inbox Project?
Yep.
So we went from 9,000 unread emails to inbox 0. And that's a goal that I still to this day strive to hit. And after I kind of tamed the inbox, Pat said to me, he said, hey, you just did a really great job with this one project, but now how do I maintain it without you? And it just kind of grew from there. So it went from, like 5 to 10 hours a week of email management. And then it was, hey, Jess, I've got this project and nobody on the team can really take it on. Do you have time? Could we take a little more of your time? Is that okay? And it just kind of ramped up. It went from 5 to 10 hours to 20 hours to 30 hours, 40 hours plus. And 7 years later, here we are.
I love it. Thank you, Jess, for that quick origin story. I would love to paint a picture of what it was like for us to kind of first work together, because I think it's a common misconception that you hire somebody and then everything is fixed right away. And I hired you specifically for email, right? But can you talk about what we had to do together before we got to the point where things were working really, really well? And what advice would you give somebody who is working with somebody for the first time?
Absolutely. When Pat and I first started working together, it was a lot of time that the two of us spent together. So it's a big investment on the executive's part, whether you're a team of one, whether you're a big team, you're the executive presiding over a large organization, you need to spend a lot of your time and effort and energy meeting with your assistant so that they can learn about your business. They can learn how you would respond to something. So like using the email as a specific example, Pat and I used to meet like 2 or 3 or more times a week when I was first getting to learn all of this stuff. I had to go through the 9,000 emails. I had to read what kind of correspondence he received, figure out, okay, this is the kind of stuff where it doesn't even need a response. This is the kind of stuff where it needs a response, but it doesn't have to come from Pat. Here's the tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of stuff that needs Pat's eyes on it every week, but does he actually need to sit down and read the entire email, or could I give him an executive summary of the email, distill a 3-page long email down into like 1 or 2 sentences? And it was just a lot of learning up front and learning a lot about Pat as a person, learning a lot about the SPI community, Team Flynn, everybody as an audience. And from what I learned, I was kind of gobsmacked. Not everybody gets a great client and a great community out of the gates like that. And not everybody gets to keep that for 7+ years. So it really just a lot of effort, a lot of time at the beginning. And I'm sure, in my mind, I was just like, Pat's thinking, gosh, who is this person? They're just always asking questions, always needing to know more. And, but then that trickled down, you go from 2 or 3 or more times a week meeting to, okay, this week, I think I just need you like Tuesday, Thursday. And now 7 years later, we meet once a week on Mondays for 30 minutes and just blow through everything that I need, Pat's eyes on, which is probably like 1 or 2% of the total incoming communication that we receive. But yeah, a lot of work up front. So just when you're getting ready to hire somebody, be prepared. Be prepared that you're going to have to spend a lot of your time with that person. Even though, when I came to Pat, I had 10 plus years of experience. You still learn a lot about the organization that you're stepping into as the assistant. You still learn a lot about your executive. You're both going to make mistakes. Absolutely, you are. But a great assistant knows to learn from those mistakes and hopefully never make them again. So have a lot of patience, have a lot of grace, but also hire slowly and fire quickly. Like Pat hired me to do a one-off project to tame his inbox. It was like a 40-hour project. And I was like, okay, inbox tamed. Here you go. Have fun. And then he said, no, let's, we'll keep you on like a small retainer and then we'll increase it as work increases. He very easily could have said, okay, thanks, and changed his email password, and we could have gone our separate ways. So what I like to say is don't give somebody the keys to the castle, give them like the little code to the garage, because you can always take that back. Then you don't have to rekey the whole place. Then it's just a quick, okay, this was great, they completed the project, or this wasn't so great, they didn't complete the project, but either way, no harm, no foul.
That's super great advice, Jess. Thank you. And like you said earlier, now 7 years later, we only have one call a week for 30 minutes. And the way that call works is Jess calls me at precisely 10 p.m. After the kids are down. And she just burns through correspondences. Hey, so-and-so wants you on their podcast. Is that something you'd be interested in? Yes or no? So-and-so wants you to speak at their live event. Is that something you have space for? Hey, this interview that you did has to be rescheduled. What do we do about that? And all these kinds of things happen in rapid fire succession. And like Jess said, I'm only seeing a certain percentage of all the correspondences that are coming in. But it took time to get here for sure. And I think when I first started out, I had this expectation that things would be just solved right away. But like Jess said, it takes some time, it takes some patience. So just know going into it, or maybe you already have an assistant and it's not quite working out. It might mean right now that you just have to communicate more up front to get more of that time back. And I really want to emphasize that lesson of just giving away the code to the garage. And then after you see that they're doing a great job there, then maybe you let them into the basement, and then you can start letting them in. And now Jess is managing a massive part of my business, especially when it comes to corresponding with people and helping become an extension of who I am and how I want to serve. Jess, can you speak to a little bit about how you can help an assistant learn about the audience? Because that's where I really feel like you've shined specifically, is how you've been able to be an extension of me in terms of making people feel welcome, wanting to serve them, and making people feel good, or in times where people are upset, being able to manage that, and just kind of knowing who the audience is. I think that's an important lesson. And, a lot of people think an assistant is just, hey, they're just going to help me and that's it, but they actually help the audience as well at the same time.
Yeah, a great assistant is, a business partner. Like, it's somebody that really dives in head first, gets to know you, gets to know your team, gets to know your audience. The way that I personally got to know the SPI audience, the SPI community, Team Flynn, is Pat, earlier on in his business, used to encourage people to email him, hey, if you have a question, shoot me an email and I would be happy to help. So when it was my project to, kind of tame the inbox, I had a huge wealth of information. I got to see what kinds of things did people email Pat for? What kinds of questions did they have? What times of day did they come in? So it was really just something that I learned so much by diving into that inbox. I definitely did a little bit of skimming of social media and just kind of paid attention to what Pat was doing to interact with the audience. I will let everybody here in on a little secret that if you were at FlynnCon last summer, you may remember this. I have not actually ever listened to an entire episode of the Smart Passive Income podcast, especially not my own. If you look at the episode back from 2014, I was so nervous. And, just like even the thought, like I remember where I was and what I was wearing and what I was doing that day. I'm just like, nope, I don't need to relive that. And then the most recent episode earlier this year, it's a good one. I definitely refer both of them out to people, and I know how to find episodes to say, oh, your question is about email management. here's this great episode that I actually recorded. Oh, your question is about building a membership community. Here's this episode about Stu McLaren. Like I'm an excellent researcher. I can keyword search like nobody's business. So I can always find you the resource that you're after. But yeah, I have not yet listened to an entire episode of the Smart Passive Income podcast. So the person doesn't even necessarily have to be like a super fan of the person that they're supporting. And in fact, I would recommend that they aren't, because like we get a lot of people all the time who say, Pat, I'm your biggest fan. I want to work for you. I want to work for you for free. And a lot of people, I think can get kind of blinded by celebrity or a little starstruck, or they might be using it as, a stair step, like a stepping stone to a different opportunity. So I think if you hire for the right skill set and the right mentality, like Pat said, and thank you. I really appreciate that you said that I take care of the audience really well. That's really important to me. Like, if you don't have good customer service, like I've worked in bigger organizations where it takes forever to get a hold of a real human being. You just get a cut and paste form response that's super cold and robotic, and maybe the links are broken when it sends you to different resources. I've seen bad customer service, taking care of your fans and that kind of thing. And I knew coming into it that Pat, that's one of the most important things to you in this business is taking care of everybody in the community, making sure everybody is heard, making sure we answer as many questions as possible, we're as helpful as possible. So back to your original question, how to learn about the audience. Like I said, I was able to just dive in through the email. So whatever it is your business uses, like if you're super huge on Twitter, if you're just like rapid fire, you're asking questions, you're getting responses, people are interacting with you all day, have your assistant look at those responses, have them create, even like if they don't want to use their personal Twitter handle, have them create a work Twitter handle. Like I had one for a little while that I've literally never used, Jessica SPI, because I was like, oh, if Pat's got a huge Twitter following, maybe I should be on that. But thankfully, Pat does all of his own social media. So that's nice for me. But, like wherever it is that you're the most active, have your assistant become part of the conversation. Have them lead conversations. Give them a lot of autonomy. That's a big thing is, I would say to Pat, this is how I think you would respond to it. But I wouldn't give him like an actual, here's exactly the words I'm going to use to respond to this. He could tell like from conversations, I'm a professional person, and I say, okay, this is what I think this person is saying. This is the points that I think we should respond to. And I've had a lot of freedom and flexibility to respond in the way that I think is best.
Thank you, Jess. Great answer. Really quick before we continue with the Q&A with Jess here, my amazing executive assistant. First of all, welcome Dr. Joella to Team Flynn Platinum. Thank you so much for that. To answer K-Walk Comedy's question, are you using the new Ecamm interview integration link? Indeed, I am, which is a lot better. As you can see, there was a little bit of an audio snafu at the top, but a lot easier than just screen sharing Skype like we did with Shalene a couple weeks ago. Scooby Life is asking, is Jess a 1099 or salaried employee with benefits? Jess was for a while a 1099, and I was hiring her in a more contractual basis, but recently she's come on as an employee with benefits, and I think that's the smart thing to do when you find great people, because you want to keep them and you want to make them happy and be able to serve them as well. So that's kind of where we're at now. Some people asking where they can get more information. Jess, I know you have some projects and stuff. Somebody, Elton, even asking, do you have a course? Any more? Where can people get more resources? I know we have a couple podcast episodes, which I'll pop in the description after this is done. But you have something coming up that I know about. And also, why do you have a flower in your hair?
Well, you can find out more about me at askanassistant.com. So it's kind of in the vein of the original format of the Ask Pat podcast. If people have questions about working with an assistant, I'm your gal. So, drop me a question there. It's kind of similar. You can either record on SpeakPipe and I can put your voicemail into the episode, or if you're too shy to record, which is totally fine, because Recording my voice makes me nervous too. There's also a little form where you can just ask your question and I can read it. So definitely looking for people to ask any and all questions. Askanassistant.com is the best place to find out about me. And then the flower in my hair, when did this start? All I know is at this point, if I don't wear it, I get a lot of concerned people checking in. Jess, where's your flower? I just kind of started wearing it. I used to have really long hair, like down to my waist long. Now it's pretty shaggy because of quarantine. I haven't had a haircut since March. Just kind of letting it grow. And you should see my husband's beard. His beard is, it's pretty fancy, pretty fluffy. So we're excited to make a fun Christmas card, before and after March to December, see how far we can go. But the flower started just as a kind of a hair accent, something I would wear once in a while, and then wore it for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. And then I just decided I was kind of done with it, wanted to try something else. And everybody would see me, Jess, where's your flower? Where's your flower? Oh my gosh. And then to drive the point home even further, we were at the state fair. Gosh, this was many years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And we looked up, and from across the fair, not from across the room, from across the fair, we see somebody, Jess, oh my gosh, hi. And I was like, what? Who can tell that that's me? And so we went up there, and it was our neighbors. Like, we went across the fair and met up with them, and they're like, we could tell it was you because you had a pretty dress on and you had a flower in your hair. And I was like, oh, well, I really like that. So now everywhere I go, you look for the flower in my hair and it's Jess.
It's a signature Jess thing for sure. So that's how you know who Jess is when you come to FlynnCon next year, perhaps. Anyway, thank you all for the thumbs up. If we can get to 100 before the end of the chat, that'd be really amazing. And thank you also for the 3 thumbs down. Not everybody loves everything, but you're still helping out with the algorithm. I hope you have a better day. So a couple questions. Do you answer emails as me? Like, do you pretend to be me? I think this was a question that just came in from Margaret. And then I have a follow-up question after. So why don't we answer that question first?
Yeah, let's start with that. That is something that Pat and I discussed very early on. I answer questions as me 99% of the time. There are very, very few instances where I will say, yep, Pat here. Here's the answer to your question. One, because I don't want to give the impression like if Pat's on a live stream and someone pretending to be Pat is answering emails, and maybe that person is on the live stream, like, it can get into dicey territory with, being able to track people's movements and whereabouts when, hey, Pat, you were just speaking on stage at Podcast Movement. How did you respond to my question? So I think it just makes sense to identify who it is that you're speaking with. Pat and I have very different written speaking voices. I learned how to type on a typewriter. So even to this day in 2020, I still do a double space after a period. And that's a typing habit that that's never going to change. So, it's ingrained. If you type 100 words a minute and you do it with a double space, if it's working, why change it? So, we have different punctuation habits. We have different written voices. And over the years, I've come to be able to write in Pat's voice. Touching on earlier where I said I've never had him read a draft of what I've had to write. He does occasionally, but also if I'm going to write something as him, he absolutely gets to read that before it goes out. We don't want to give the impression that Pat and I work different hours, especially when I was living in Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's a 2-hour time difference. And maybe if I was working, I worked like noon to 4 and then 8 to midnight. I don't want people to think that Pat is just always on or, we would be coming from different places. And also I don't want to put words in Pat's mouth. So if I said, hey, Karen, here's the answer to your question. And then Karen's like, hey, Pat, you told me this was the answer to my question. And then Pat says, oh, I would never say that. So I don't want to presume that I know. I would say many times I have a good idea, but if I'm going to send an email as Pat, I always get his final approval.
Thank you. What else beyond email do you do for me now? let's just discuss the breadth of all of that for everybody, just so they can kind of get a sense and understanding. And then I'll ask a follow-up question about, well, what happens if there's a little bit of a disagreement or something like a tough conversation has to happen? How do we together manage that? But first, let's start with just the breadth of all the things that you do for me now, so people can get an understanding of how somebody who you hire for one thing can turn into a number of other things.
Absolutely. I love that. My role has changed a lot over the years because the business has changed a lot over the years. When I started working with Pat, the only real way that you made money was you had an ebook on Amazon. I think it was Let Go that you said you sold for 99 cents. And we gave more copies of that away than we sold. And then you made money from affiliate marketing. You didn't have any, like, you weren't getting paid speaking engagements on stages. Maybe you got small sponsorships for the podcast here and there, but like, we didn't have courses. Pat hadn't written his first book yet. A lot in the business has changed in that time. So what went from just doing email to, hey, Jess, could you support the Ask Pat podcast a little bit? Like, I used to process everybody's voicemail submissions and like pick who would, this is a great question. This person has a great voice, kind of processing through those. And then as things started to ramp up, support for his books, support for speaking engagements, support for travel. So definitely booking travel, making sure that you have an airline ticket, making sure you have a car on the ground when you get there, making sure you have a place to stay, making sure you have an itinerary with addresses, phone numbers, all those little details that just Pat can just show up and not have to worry about it and just know everything's taken care of. I do a lot of our events. So any kind of meetup that you've been to over the years. Pat is a very self-sufficient person. So that is something that has been really cool to be let into, is being able to come with for speaking engagements and have a more hands-on role with the audience. And, instead of saying, oh, hey, I called ahead and I booked you this back room at a pizza place, I can actually be there, welcome people, interact with everybody, take care of any special guests that we might have joining us. As we developed our online courses for the first 3-ish years, I was the first point of contact for all of our course students. I think our school had about 60,000 students in it when I handed that over to Andrea. So being kind of the first line of, hey, Jess, I forgot my password. Hey, I registered 3 different courses under 3 different email addresses. Can you help me? So I've done a lot of technical support, a lot of student support through Teachable. That has been handed off to a different team member now. And so I get to focus on, supporting Pat here with the income stream, supporting Pat's speaking engagements, support for FlynnCon when it comes back next summer. So it's still a really big, really exciting job. And then we do have coaching students. So I'm very involved with the accelerator group. And then we do a couple of big, really high touch mastermind experiences here in San Diego. That's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Jess. I'd love to talk a little bit about maybe some of the tougher conversations we've had. We don't have to get so specific with what they are, but there's going to be times when you and your assistant maybe have some miscommunication, or the assistant maybe doesn't do what they said they were going to do, or you forgot to do something. And then how do we continue to have honest conversations with each other and continue to improve our systems without, getting upset at each other? How would you recommend a pair or more to sort of manage that relationship and keep things moving forward, but also understanding that not everything is going to be perfect? How do we manage these relationships and continue to grow closer together, even though it's not always going to be perfect?
A big part of that is just be honest. And that is way harder and way simpler than it sounds. Coming from the corporate executive assistant background, I was also coming from an environment of really poor communication, really very much, I'm the CEO. It's you do as I say, not as I do. I say jump, you say how high, not giving me any feedback, pushing off our one-on-one every week, not really making the relationship a priority and just kind of expecting me to be a mind reader. That didn't work for me. That really didn't work. That person, the last executive I supported before working with Pat, also was really micromanaging. Some people can do that. I cannot. So for me personally, I came into the relationship with Pat with the attitude of, I'm only going to work with good clients, people who are good people who have a good mission behind what they're doing, people who care about the success of their business, but also the success of any other business that they interact with. So I kind of hit the jackpot there, but also working with somebody who, when there is a tough conversation, that we can just have it. And that is, a friend of mine told me this, and I just love this. She said, my superpower is having tough conversations with people, but in a way that doesn't put them on the defensive, and that you can tell that I have everyone's best interests at heart. Like, I don't bring tough conversations up just to be rude. I don't bring it up to, because I like pointing out things that are wrong. I bring it up because I see a problem, kind of like earlier in the stream where I said, hey, I'm hearing an echo. What is that? I see a problem, and I know that working in a small, agile organization, I have the power to fix it. So that's really important to me too, is being in those small, agile situations where I have the power to fix it. So when you're coming into a new executive assistant and assistant and CEO relationship, as the CEO, you need to put your ego in the closet. Like, you really just need to understand that you do not know everything. Yes, it is your company. Yes, it is your baby. A good assistant will understand and respect that, but a good assistant also wants to help you. Like, I'm not here to take anything away from Pat. I'm not here to bask in the glow of his success and say, oh yeah, I'm part of that, whatever. Like, I'm here because I really care about the SPI community, and I really care about Pat, and the work that we do is impactful. So, really just trust that your assistant has good intentions coming into it. Have a good conversation up front. Learn a lot about yourselves. Like, we've done personality type tests over the years, like Strengths Finder, Enneagram, what's the other one? The 16 personalities. It's kind of like Myers-Briggs. So just knowing what your different types are, or love languages, that's a big one. I think it has a different name when you're talking about it in a professional capacity. It's like appreciation languages or something like that, but it's the same concept. So just really know that about yourself and share that with each other. And because I came from such a long line of not great communication at work, I just decided to change that. Pat was a new client, and I was just like, okay, the worst thing he can do is fire me, and I'm doing good work, so I don't think he's going to fire me, but let's just ask the question and make sure. Really early on in our relationship, one of my last roles, the executive would give me really complicated travel instructions and then get really upset, like ridiculously, like not speak to me for a week if I made one typo on his travel itinerary. And so I came into the relationship with Pat with a lot of anxiety surrounding travel itineraries. And when he and I first started working together in 2014, he was really starting to ramp up speaking and travel. And, I would say, oh yeah, I can get you an itinerary, no problem. And then it would be like the day before and he still wouldn't have it. And he just very innocently would say, hey, Jess, where's that itinerary? But in my anxiety brain, I was just like, oh my God, he's going to fire me. He's so stressed out. He's so mad. And then I said, you know what? No, he's not the same executive. Just ask him. And I straight up just said, hey, Pat, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I am very late in getting you these. And here's why. I came into this with a lot of anxiety. And if you could just give me some positive reinforcement, like tell me how much April loves the itineraries, because she just has a little one sheet rundown of everything. And if something happens while you're not home, she knows exactly where to find you. Tell me how great it is when you get to the airport and there's a PDF copy of your airline ticket. And again, this is 2014. So like mobile apps were not quite as popular then, but it's so great to have a little PDF packet that I can print out, and I have a barcode copy of my ticket right in my packet. Like, just, I need that positive reinforcement. So really encourage your assistant, say, okay, I've noticed you struggling with this. How can we help? And, encourage your assistant too, to say, have you noticed this? What do you think could help? Just be open to those conversations and have them, and then work, whatever the solution is, like implement it and do it.
Thank you, Jess. Appreciate that. Open honesty, just getting to the tough conversations now so we can make decisions so that we don't have to either avoid it or have it boil up and overflow later is really key, right? This is a relationship. This is a partnership. It's not just a CEO with their executive assistant. I mean, we're friends, but we're also business partners in a sense, and we are here to serve the same purpose, to best help our audience and have a successful business, which is great. This might sound weird coming from me, but I think it's important for people to hear that, like when you feel appreciated, I think it's really important for the people you work with to get recognition for when they do great work. And I try my best, and I think I could do even better, and we can always get better at this, letting the other party know that they're doing a great job. When or what kinds of things do you like to see? Do you get excited about that make you feel great when it comes to the work that you do? I used to work for a company in my architecture firm where I would do a lot of great work, even beyond what my job description was, and I was never even just thanked for that. And I know a simple thank you can go a very long way, but what else can help you stay motivated to continue working and crushing it like you do?
Yeah, I love this question. So this goes back to what I was saying about the love languages. Really learn your love language as the CEO and your assistant's love language. Pat and I have different love languages. Pat's love language is gifts. Like, you really love to give gifts. I think you love to receive gifts. And, that's different for me. Like, I do appreciate certain items, but I have a pretty, we just moved here from Minnesota a couple of years ago. We got rid of 75% of the stuff that we owned. So if something comes into my home, I'm very selective about it. I'm very particular. I have certain things, or I'm at a point in my life where I can afford a really nice item. If I need a pair of shoes, I'm not going to buy, maybe I would buy a $30 pair of Converse because those are awesome. But, I'm going to buy a really nice, a couple of years ago, I bought a $200 pair of shoes that's going to last 10 years, so definitely quality over quantity for me. So me personally, words of appreciation and acts of service are actually my big two. My husband and I just recently did the love languages too. So when he takes out the trash, when he takes care of the cats, when he does the dishes, when he makes me breakfast, all of those are little acts of service. So, just really have a great, frank conversation with each other about how to best make that happen. Pat does a really great job of, saying thank you. And, if I'm making the audience happy, the audience tells Pat how happy they are. And then Pat tells me, oh, hey, I got a really great compliment from Karma the other day. Hey, I got a really nice note about you from this speaking engagement that we went to. All of that means so much more to me than anything else, if that makes sense. So really just have a frank conversation. What would you like to see? Or, if you can mesh your gift giving, your love languages together. Our parents still live in Minnesota, and I love to buy fancy vegan chocolate at Whole Foods. I will always take a Whole Foods gift card any day of the week, because then I can go get my fancy vegan mac and cheese, my fancy vegan chocolate, and then it's just something where I can still say, oh, hey, Pat, thanks so much. That was really nice. Or, just be upfront with each other so that it's very appreciated and useful. I love a functional gift.
Thanks, Jess. And then finally, to finish off, we've answered a lot of questions here, in fact, already. Just sort of what's prompting them in these conversations. But how do we celebrate together? I think this is another fun thing that we do that I look forward to, that I get excited about. Maybe this is because of my love language of gifts and things. We do it in this way. And I see behind you there are some pins. And I don't know if I switch this camera, you might be able to see some pins right here. What are these pins? Where does this come from? Talk about, I don't even remember how we got into this, but this is a nice, fun little thing that we do together to sort of celebrate these big moments that we have, whether it be FlynnCon or traveling to some event, or Shalene's event where we sold Power Up Podcasting together for the first time. Those sorts of situations we celebrate. And I think it's important to celebrate just as entrepreneurs and people in general. but how do we celebrate? And maybe this will inspire people to come up with something with the people that they work with.
Yes, this is absolutely a direct result of our love languages meeting in the middle. So again, Pat's love language is giving a gift, and you are correct. Right behind me, you can see between here all these little pins. Not all of these are from Pat and I, but like here's a recent favorite. So anytime that we do something really cool or fun or big together, there we go, camera backwards, we give each other a pin. And so this came about after Power Up Podcasting. When we did Shalene's event, we were up in Orange County, and we went to downtown Disney. And Pat was just like, "Ooh, I really just want to get you something. I want to get you something to show my appreciation." And I said, "Pat, I came here with a carry-on suitcase. Like I live in Minnesota. I brought a teeny tiny carry-on. I don't have room for anything else, but I really appreciate the thought." And we came up on, I actually think I have the original pin from that event. We got, this is from Star Wars. And forgive me because I'm probably going to mess up her name. I want to say this is from Rogue One. So this is it Jyn Erso? Is that the character?
I think so.
And then Pat, it was a little 2-pin set. And I said, "Here, you can buy this because then you get half and I get half. And this will fit into my carry-on suitcase." And so a new little tradition was born where every time that we do something fun or big or new or different or that's super successful, we just pick a new little set of pins, whether they match or not. You know, like they can be part of a set or they can be two little separate from anything.
That
yours?
Trying to.
I know, get the focus, yeah. But yeah, so that's our first little set. And then every time that we do something cool, Pat and I are big Jurassic Park fans. What else do we have? We have video games. So I have Toadstool.
Yeah, that's where this Barbasol one came from. It was this is from Jurassic Park. The Barbasol came with the DNA in it.
And I've got this one that I think is really fun. It's the East Dock. And then the pin, it spins. So yeah, we just, kind of a geeky, fun little fandom thing that, and then we have a nice little physical reminder, and Pats are all kind of grouped together. So you can see that it's a lot of wins accumulated over several years. And it just kind of gives us something fun to look forward to after every big milestone. What's the fun pin set going to be?
Thank you, Jess. Absolutely. So, hey, y'all. We're going to say goodbye to Jess. Jess, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate you so much. I'll link to, in the description after this is done, processing here on YouTube, the interviews that we've done together, as well as askanassistant.com, where people can submit a question for your upcoming show. And we're just really thankful for you. Any final words of advice for people who are about to start working with or who are already working with an assistant?
Just be patient and kind. Have a lot of grace for both parties. You're learning something new. They're learning something new. Ideally, you're both lifelong learners, so you'll learn something new every day. And just have fun. If you're not having fun, what are you doing?
Thanks, Jess. We appreciate you. Say bye to Jess, everybody. Thank you. I'm going to kick you out. Awesome. Dude, super fun, and I'm so thankful that we had an opportunity to hang out with Jess today. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment section, what was the best piece of advice that you received? Sorry for the echo. Again, we had used a brand new software for this to make it a little bit better, and we didn't realize there was going to be two inputs coming in at the same time. They were just a little bit off, so I'm going to try and manage that later. But thank you for being okay with that. And super stoked on the advice that we learned today. It would absolutely behoove you not to at least take one of these things that we talked about and implement it, and at least consider even hiring somebody. But remember, it's a big decision for sure, but you can get that money back in time, in help, in support, as an extension of your brand, whether it's somebody you hire full-time or part-time, or even just contractually. I'm very stoked for your future, and hopefully this episode will be a part of that. Sorry. Can you hear me okay? My bad. Sorry about that. The times for, so first of all, thank you so much. Can we get to 100 thumbs up before we finish up? And again, thank you today. I appreciate that, but I definitely hit the wrong button there. Anyway, we're good now. But anyway, to finish up, we have a special announcement. The times for the income stream are going to change starting tomorrow. Starting tomorrow, the income stream will begin at 9 p.m. So even though it's a Wednesday, we're going to try to keep it consistent. 9 p.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, every day. And the reason for this is because my kids' schedules are changing because school starts tomorrow. So we will be starting at 9 tomorrow. Obviously, if you go to this link here, patflynn.com/theincomestream, you'll see the countdown timer every morning. It'll tell you essentially when we start. But we're going to be changing to an hour later, essentially, and hopefully we can keep it the same every single day so we don't have that weird change on Wednesday. But even on the weekends, starting 1 hour later, just doing that for consistency and to accommodate so that I don't have April, my wife, having to get the kids up, feed them breakfast, everything. I want to support with that. I want to be there as they start their day. And so 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, and that will be 9 a.m. Pacific. Yes, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern will be the new time. So I'm sure a bunch of people are going to forget, and I'm sorry for the change that may make for some of you who are overseas, but I wouldn't be able to do it otherwise because I need to be there to support, and I want to be there to support the kids when they start their day since school starts tomorrow. So thank you all so much for understanding that. I appreciate you, and looking forward to your success. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, here on the Income Stream. Thanks so much. Peace out. And as always, Team Flynn for the win.
This is the income stream to help you achieve your dream. Oh, while we keep it clean, this is the income stream. It's the kind of show where you can come and go, but then you leave inspired with no fee required. The income stream with Pat Flynn.
Hey, y'all, thank you so much for joining me today. It's great to introduce Jess to you if you haven't met her before. I know maybe you've had contact with her before. It's always good to put a face to the email, and just so thankful for her so much. Thankful for you as well. Peace out, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow. Much love, and 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. Peace out, y'all. Much love.
Bruh.